Or I have to ask your advice on a rowing machine because mine just died.
Okay. Yeah, I only have one. I haven't done a bunch of market research on them or anything.
No. I'm just curious which one you use, and then if the one I'm thinking about getting is like absurd, because I get nervous about spending money on anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know why that cracks me up, but it's funny. It's good.
It's just leftovers from an era where it's like, what do we have to eat next week? Ramen and maybe pastaroni. Maybe live it up a little bit.
My holdover from that era has nothing to do with money. It's all food.
Yeah, I have that too.
Anytime there's food, I'm like, oh, I have to eat this because I don't know what I'm going to eat next.
Yeah.
Like cheap, crappy pizza is the worst because I'm just like, I must consume all of this to survive.
Yeah. For me, it's leftovers too. Where I'm just like, this isn't bad yet, and it's like, no, that's bad. No, it's still good.
I've started to ask my wife. So no one liked this. Should we put it in the fridge and wait for it to go bad and throw it away, or just throw it away now? And she's like, let's put it in the fridge. So this is the 48-hour art check, round 270.
Boom.
Welcome.
Awesome. Still get jazzed about that intro.
We got to do another one now that we both know what we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. I guess now that we both have kind of some animation chops going on, it'd be good. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
It'd also be fun to get Scott in there and.
Yeah, I like Scott's idea of having him just fly by the screen on a motorcycle.
I love it. It could be like a Cirque mobile.
Yeah, we got to get Scott and Kathy and.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Who wants to go first?
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'll go first. I feel like I've been missing in action. I mean, I was on the last art check, but I missed it. I mean, last week I missed Artcasters.
Yes.
And the week before we didn't have Artcasters. So anyway, but I've been busy and stuff. So let's see. So I've been working on a Christmas card. I usually do a family Christmas card every year.
Yes.
So I've been working on that. I did some keyword research for some books that I'm hoping to upload soon. Edited a video. Filmed and edited a video that'll go up tomorrow. It should be kind of fun. I'm revamping an old character that I created back when I was a kid. So those are always fun videos to do. Worked on some t-shirt designs and things like that. And this isn't necessarily something I worked on, but I did want to show this off because I just got it. I don't show a lot of my KDP stuff off, but this one I'm pretty proud of. It's When I Grow Up, I Can Be Anything, an inspirational coloring book for boys. And I will do a girls one too, but right now there's a lot of girl ones out on the market, not too many boys, so I'm trying to fill that void. But yeah, this was a real fun one to do. It's got kind of prompts on one side, but just all the different things you can be when you grow up. And so if anyone has young boys, I know you two don't know anyone who has young boys, but this makes a great stocking stuffer and everything. You can find it on it's not on my site, but you can find it on Amazon if you just search When I Grow Up, I Can Be Anything, an inspirational coloring book for boys, and it should show up. So that's one of the things I've been working on, and it just took so long for it took almost 3 weeks for this thing to get approved because just stupid little reasons. Like even though it's a full bleed, they were saying that there was a problem with it lining up, and then every time you have one little problem, it sets the whole thing back for another week. But anyway, it's done right now, so excited about that. So that's what I've been working on.
Awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to go talk to all the people I know that have boys.
Yeah.
Josh, how about you?
So I have not gotten as much done as I'd like. A lot of it's like stuff I can't show. I'll show what I can real quick. So it's just kind of maintaining the flow of doing thumbnails, but I need to do. I'm like too shorter than I'd like to be. For some reason, they've been taking like twice as long. So there's that. And then other than that, I've also been maintaining the sending out about like 10 to 20. I've reduced down to 10 because 20 was just so impossible. So I'm sending out about 10 press releases a day. I did a podcast interview with Luke T. Harrington for Change My Mind podcast that hopefully will air next week. We'll find out. And then I booked a podcast interview for the following Monday, which is pretty cool. It's a mental health related podcast, and I'm pretty excited about that. Got that squared away. I did an interview with the Grunion, which is like a local newspaper in Long Beach, who are going to potentially run a story on Thursday. And then I had already mentioned that I had done one with the local paper here, and a story they were going to run on Friday got pushed for this Friday. And so we'll see. But hopefully this week there will be like a little double post, which would be awesome. And then I'm just continuing to try to kind of garner leads and like note like people I need to follow up with and press. But so far it's like a drudgery process, but it's also been kind of encouraging to start getting some bites. Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Cool.
So yeah. So that's pretty much what work I've gotten done. But I definitely need to double down, get more press releases out today, and then also like get back on the horse with like having consistent output for those pages, the next pages. So I'm happy with where it's going though. Like I like the way the story is forming. And I'm also really happy about the feedback I'm getting from the first book for those who have checked it out already. So yeah.
Cool. This is going to look like a lot, but it's not a lot because of what I'll go over in challenges. But so I got a kind of a crowd scene done where they all kind of take their weapons out in the crowd scene. I've got a coin flip. Fun little trick I was showing Josh that I had to figure out because I don't know how to do stuff in 3D. So it looks like it's 3D, but it's not. And then I have these kind of swipes that I did that are like those kind of like ninja anime like cuts, and that'll precede these where they kind of get cut and then blow up. So
I love it.
There's that, and then I also have started working on the Congressional Battle Dome logo, which will have like electricity and like guitar riffs and screaming while it's on. So that'll be good. Nice. I'm trying to go for like the late 80s, early 90s like monster truck rally vibe.
I love it. So what day is it going to be on? Sundays?
Sunday. Yeah. But this one was fun. I was actually drawing this on Artcasters on Thursday. So that's what I was drawing the assets then. But so that's what I got done. How about challenges, Scott?
Challenges, just nothing major. The usual books taking too long to load, which now is just, it's just because of the season and everything. So many people trying to upload books. That's, challenge, and just the holidays. I mean, there's always tons of stuff to do around the holidays that kind of sometimes set you back and everything. So nothing major, just little things like that.
Yeah. How about you, Josh?
My main one's just been juggling, things are are busy where I'm working, which is good. We want busy, especially this day and age where like retail is so slow. It's nice to have some clients continuing and pushing through, but it's been kind of exhausting, like balancing that, promoting a book and then trying to work on the next book. It's a lot. Like for me, the promotion mode is just really discouraging, and yet like it's cool, and I'm pretty happy to have some bites and some responses. But it's just like trying to kind of, I think I mentioned it last time, but it's like trying to keep your spirits up when you're basically like sending the equivalent of like job applications like every single day and getting dead results like on the majority of what you send out is pretty tough. But it is funny because like even that Grunion article, like I hadn't heard back from that person, and it turns out they had actually sent a follow-up that somehow got stuck in my spam. And so they followed up with me and were like, are we doing this story? And I was like, oh yeah, like we should do this story. So, and it was really a thorough, interesting interview. So it's been weird. It's like a mix of ups and downs. Like the people who have reached out and have read the book, like really like the book and are really moved by it, which is really encouraging. So it's just a matter of like trying to get it into people's like, it like try to branch out and get it to people who aren't in my immediate circle, you know, to kind of read and hopefully check out and tell their friends and stuff about. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's exhausting. And then I had my rowing machine, which is it has like one of those tension bands. It's a very cheap rowing machine. So it was built with like, I don't know what those are called, but it's like stretchy workout band kind of thing. And that's like halfway split. So I think I probably should stop using it because if it snaps, Corey very rightly kind of pointed out to me, it'll probably send me across the room. So there's that too. I need to kind of figure out a replacement and a method of replacement for that because I don't want to lose my hard fought for exercise routine that I've actually managed to make normal now. It's just anything that can get in the way of that being routine is not good. So I definitely need to find a replacement for that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then boring stuff like I had to get a smog check. You know, it's like little things like that when you have windows of like 1 to 2 hours a day to work, where it becomes really problematic, as you guys know. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing that I've been dealing with is just all the, you know, death by 1,000 cuts things. But for example, doctor's appointment today, so we're officially having a girl. So it's been decided by the cameras or whatever they do. But I mean, you know, that's like traveling because our doctor's like 35 miles away from where we are and whatever. And just stuff like that. Like half of the electrical outlets in our kitchen stopped working. And I can't figure out why. So I've spent hours and hours and hours this week flipping switches and pulling circuit breakers and trying to trip GFI, GCFI, whatever those stupid things are called. And I am not an electrician, so I don't know what's going on. But you know, stuff like that. It's just I just haven't had.
And what's the weather right now?
Oh, let's see. This is a fun game that we get to play in the winter. It's warmed up. It is 16.
16 degrees and half your electric's out.
Yeah. So
I would be dead, honestly. I get cold if it's like 65. I'm just like I'm freezing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, luckily it's only going to snow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's only going to snow like 5 of the next 8 days. So, and the other thing I've been trying to figure out is my snowblower won't start for some reason, and so I don't know. It's like all this crap I don't know anything about. I don't know how to fix electrical stuff. I don't know how to fix small engines. I don't even know who to call. I don't want to call an electrician and have him be like, it's this circuit breaker. I'm like, I checked it, or whatever. So here's $150. Thanks for coming and fixing something for 15 minutes. I don't know. Home ownership blows sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's just that, all that stuff. It's fine. Nothing major, but it's all just time consuming. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting how like those little day-to-day tasks, it makes me understand. Like, I know we're often really critical of creatives who aren't kind of seeking and doing the thing they feel like they're meant to do. But I also can understand how easy it is to take stuff like that and be like, yeah, I'm just not going to work on my stuff today. I had a month ago, I had the water heater like blew and we had to replace the water heater. And I remember having that thought where I'm like, well, spent the day doing a water heater. Like, I went to my day job. Like, there's no need to do this. And I caught myself and like tried to force myself to get work done. I didn't get as much done. But I guess what I'm saying is like going through those little death by 1,000 cuts kind of things makes me definitely sympathetic to people who like do the job, clock out, like do the home stuff and then do the job and that's it.
Yeah.
Although I still have no forgiveness for them because we're in the fight. You guys should be too.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I don't know. Yeah, I've had to renegotiate some stuff with some collaborators and got me kind of thinking about different things like that. But yeah, it's tough, and everybody's got a different thing. And, but it's people who just don't do anything that I'm like, stop pretending like you want to do this.
Yes, that's the part.
I don't care if you make stuff or if you don't make stuff, but don't tell me that you want to make stuff.
Yeah.
Like I get students that are like, oh man, I wish I was as productive as you. It's like, okay, well then be that. There's nothing, I'm not magic, like there's nothing about what I'm doing that is a secret. Just do it, make it happen. I don't know.
It's tough too, because I remember when I was a student feeling like I had no time, especially in a BFA program, it gets really intense.
Sure.
But in retrospect, like I can't believe I thought I was busy because I was working and then I was going to school and I felt like I didn't have any time. But it's like, even then, like I still had a ton of time. Like I watched more movies then than I think I ever have in my life. I played more video games. Like there's a lot of things that were like time eaters that I was doing in school. And yet I would totally tell my teachers and think I was being really honest. Like, I don't know if I have the time. And I was like one of the harder workers in my class. So that to me is just like, I remember too, like having college students be like, I don't have time. And they describe their day and it was just all they had was time. It was like, right. How do you, like, I get it. It's hard, but it's like, you're never going to be in that cushion ever again. Like ever. Yeah. With that.
Yeah. Being in school, I think the difficult part about being in school is, excluding your senior year can get nuts.
Yeah.
But like the difficult part about being in school is that you have to do like what Scott's doing, where you're working on like 5 different projects at the same time. That's really hard. Like most people have difficulty like managing an output of time where you're working on different things. And when you're in school, it's like, I'm taking like 4 classes and they all have different due dates all throughout the week. And there's all this different stuff. And then it's like, and you want me to add something to that? I'm like, yeah, I do. Because it's not a time issue. It's a time management issue.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't have the time. It's that you don't have the, you don't have the, whatever it takes to organize your time,
Yep.
I mean, there are legitimately people that don't have time, but yeah. Anyway, it's interesting with college students, and I mean, I teach some capstone courses, which is like the 400 level classes. I teach 2 of those. You could argue that those students legitimately don't have time because the way that I've structured the class, but at the same time, they're making stuff, for the class. So, and that's what's taking the time. But yeah, I've never understood. I've never understood the people who are like, yeah, I want to do this. It's like, okay, well, it's not like practicing law. There's no one stopping you. There's no bar to pass.
Yeah.
You want that thing, then you just do it, and then you are it. That's it. That's the only definition that you need is, like just do it. Anyway, I don't know. And it's the wrong thing, but I've started to realize in the last week or so why I've been like hyper focused on studying what makes people motivated to do things.
Yeah.
Is because I've been trying to crack this thing, because for me, I think I cracked it so long ago, and it was out of a point of desperation that I don't know how to teach it. I've been trying to figure out, like, what are the components of motivation? What are the variables that are at play? What are and I've read, I've read books, I've read studies, I've listened to all the different things. I've spoken to the researchers who write these books and do these studies. Like I'm talking to the professors that are running the graduate students that are running these things. I'm really trying to figure out, and I think that there are components, but I think it comes down to you have to believe that you are the type of person to do that, and then do it. And that's the least helpful answer, because there's no trick. There's just no trick. That's what's driving me nuts, is everybody's looking for like the secret,
Yeah.
They always ask me, like, how do you handle your wife, leaving every day in the evenings when she's in a play? And it's like, what do you mean? Like we just do it, or they'll ask her, like, how do you handle like Corey, spending so much time like making art or doing this thing, and she's like, that's what he does. Like we make time for that. Like we still spend a ton of time together.
Well, and I think the other thing is there's a cost to everything. And so like, I don't think people realize that either. Like, even with like a book, it's like when you're doing a book and you're promoting a book, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And like there's a cost, like you lose time. Like that's part of it. That's part of the transaction. I was actually thinking, I don't know, maybe we should hang on to some of this for a topic, but it's like, sure. I was even thinking about the hundreds for a little bit. And I love that community and that group. But one of the reasons I always hesitated to join the hundreds early on, and I remember talking to Kevin about it too, because he was like, dude, you should do the hundreds because you're already doing it. You're doing at least 30 minutes a day on comics.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but like, I just don't feel like 30 minutes is enough. Like I've never felt like 30 minutes was enough. And I felt like also like it's weird that you have to, and I think it's good that people do it, but I think it's weird we have to set a challenge to spend 30 minutes a day on a comic. Like if you want to be a cartoonist, you should be working on it daily, like period. Like that should be a no-brainer. And so I've even been thinking, especially now that I've finished my book, it's like, wouldn't that be a good club? Like maybe we should start a challenge that's like a finish your graphic novel challenge. Like I want to see people actually finish books, or finish your comic challenge, where you've got like a finished published comic. I know that's weird, but it's like I think that would be the better challenge. Just on a weird note, because I'm like, I think it's good to do 30 minutes a day of whatever exercise, whatever it is, but the point being, like it for people who want to do comics, like that also shouldn't have to be a challenge. Like that just is the challenge. It's not like you don't need a slogan for it. Like you should be working on it daily. And that's totally rambly. And I also say that having gone through the hundreds and gotten benefits from it, met a lot of people through it that like are really cool and awesome people, and have made really admirable strides. But still, it's like, I mean, that 30 minutes should not just be 100 days. Like that should be your year. And maybe you get one day off every once in a while, but the majority of the time it should be 300 and something days of comics challenge. Maybe 340. where you're spending at minimum 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is small. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like that to me, I was thinking about.
Well, and that's what I was trying to get to with like the sticker stint is I think time is useful.
Yeah.
It's not a good measurement because if you focus on time, then your focus is on the wrong thing. You should be focusing on production. You should be focusing on finishing. And so like when I did the sticker stint, I was like, okay, there's all these challenges out here where you do 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, 2 hours, whatever, 5 hours a week or whatever it is. There's all these things that are focusing on time. But like, I remember watching an old like after school message. It wasn't one of the specials, but it was like one of the things. And I can't even remember what it was. But it was somebody spending 30 minutes doing something, but you could hear their thoughts. And it was like reading a book or something, spend 30 minutes a day reading a book, but they were like, they would read like a sentence and then they would check the clock and then they would start daydreaming about something. And then they would look at, like, I can sit at a drawing table for 30 minutes and it doesn't, I could not actually be productive. But like, if you try one of the daily finishing challenges, that's interesting because then you're finishing something every day. Like, I almost like the idea of doing a different type of measurement.
Yeah.
Because I've done this. So I am on a teaching team that started one of these or rewrote one of these capstone courses. And in the capstone course, these will sound familiar. We have one project that's a group project where they have to spend basically 400 hours producing something as a group. We have another project where they spend 18 days and they have to finish one thing every day. And then they have another project where they spend 3 weeks and they have to spend a minimum of an hour a day finishing one thing. And so we're trying to hit it from all angles. Here's how you collaborate with each other. But what's interesting is we're like the baseline minimum is the time. And they get the students get so hung up on the time that they miss the point, right? They miss the point of like, I don't care. Like, it's not good. It's not a good thing to show a future prospective employer or client that you spent 400 hours doing something and it doesn't look impressive. I would rather you spend 60 hours doing something that looks incredible rather than, like you're not punching a clock. No one cares. Actually, what you're showing is that you're really inefficient. Like if you focus on the time and you don't focus on the production, what you're actually showing is inefficiency. Like if it takes you longer to do something, that's not good, right? That's something that you need to improve.
Yeah.
Frank says, I did the 100 days twice. Both times I didn't complete the 100 days, but I finished my comics. I did 3 10-page stories for the 9-volt anthologies. Great, right? Finishing, I think finishing is good.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Greg's saying, I think the idea is to get momentum going, like Fogg's baby steps, habit building. And I agree. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of that is to get the momentum. But what I've found personally is that time doesn't give me the momentum as much as progress, like marked progress.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you look at the baby steps model, that's a good way of going from like, I don't do anything to like, let's get moving a little bit. I think that's good. But one thing that I've noticed is if you look at like Pink, right, and he talks about motivation, you're talking about what is the main thing? Oh, improvement, seeing improvement, that you're working on a task that you care about, and that it's something that you can master. There's some sort of form of mastery, and there's marked progress, so you can see improvement over time. And so if I am like just putting in 30 minutes or just putting in an hour or 3 hours or whatever, but I'm not getting better, I'm not having a bigger output, I'm not like making progress on my project that's like significant. I mean, that's when I start losing motivation. It doesn't matter how much time I'm putting into something. If it feels like I haven't made progress, like I'm not seeing progress made, I'm not exporting scenes, I'm not rigging characters or whatever, that's when it starts to get kind of grindy, where it's just like I'm just going through the motions and whatever. And that's when I need to finish stuff. So I love the idea coming up with some sort of challenge to just finish things.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing is, like, I actually think, I think so I think the 30 minutes a day on something is really good for habit building for sure. You know, like, I use that to start exercising, right? Where I was like, I'm going to just do this like literally every other day. Like every other day I have to do this amount of time of exercise. And I did it, and it eventually became a habit, right? Whereas like, and it finally got to the point where like now, like where like my rowing machine's broken, I'm like, crap, like I'm not happy about that, because I really like that habit. That habit makes me feel better, you know. But it took a long time to get there. It took months of like just repetition and kind of showing up when I didn't want to. So I think it's good in that sense of like having that bar makes you show up when you don't want to. On like a day where you like don't feel like writing, or you feel kind of checked out, right? It is good to have that like clock punch where it's like it or not, I have to sit in front of this thing for 30 minutes. And I think for especially that the process of writing, that's really important, because a lot of writers get hung up on, you know, kind of like the feel good writing where it's like, I got a ton done, I was really productive, and then they'll take a year off.
NaNoWriMo? Have you ever known anybody to do NaNoWriMo?
You know what's funny? So that podcast that was on today, the guy tried to do NaNoWriMo and got like, I forget, but it was some absurd amount of words in, and felt like he had failed the challenge. But at the same time, it's like, well, you got a crap load of work done, and you've got something to build on, and you have published novels, right? Like under your belt. So that's a win, right? Like the whole purpose of it is to like, you're not going to make like a perfect novel. I don't know. Maybe you will. But yeah, NaNoWriMo, like very similar. But I guess my point is like, I just think it's important for us to also understand that like, you know, I think we should be pushing cartoonists to make cartoons, like to make comics, like push animators to make animations, for the right to call themselves a cartoonist or an animator. You know what I mean? Like, it is one of those things of like, if I walked around, like told everybody I knew, hey, I'm a gig poster artist, right? And I made 2 gig posters. I'm not necessarily a gig poster artist, right? Like if I'm not working on gig poster art all the time, I'm not really a gig poster artist. Like I did some gig posters. I'm an artist who's done gig posters, but I wouldn't walk around calling myself a gig poster artist, right?
Yeah.
I call myself an illustrator because I do that all the time. Like I do that at my day job. I do it now. I'd call myself a graphic designer. I do that every day. I'd call myself an art director. I do that full time, right? And I call myself a cartoonist because I work on cartooning every single day. But like, I feel like there should be kind of a measure, not like a gate that's keeping people from doing it. But I do think sometimes and I don't know, I'm curious what Scott's thought is. Maybe I'm being an elitist, a terrible elitist, but I feel like there should be like a measure and a standard that we're all aspiring to, right? I don't think we should all be sort of like just cheerleading everyone, regardless of whether they're getting work done or not. Like I think we need to cheerlead people to actually get stuff done and get work accomplished. Like you said, Corey, like, you know, finish designs, finish whatever, but actually have something to show. I think is important, because like you could, you know, heck, like the last Artcasters, you and I were talking afterwards, and I was just having a slow work day where I was carving away at a thumbnail for, I got like maybe thumbnail 2 panels. And then I was like, you know what, I gotta call it, you know, because it was like 1 a.m. or something. I wanted to finish a page that day, right? But in a weird way, on my own productivity's point, like those panels kind of don't do me any good. It's not like I can high five myself and be like, yeah, it took me twice as long to do that page, but I put in, that's like 10 30-minute sessions, you know, like that very well could be, by the framework of like the hundreds or something, that could be a successful comic, right? Because it's like, dude, I put in 30 minutes every day and I got 2 panels done in in 100 days, I mean, that's possible, where it's like I just kept starting and scrapping this one panel. So I don't know what you guys I don't know what the answer is. I think it's good to have a framework like that, and I don't want to see that community die. Like we talked about, like the Facebook's a little slow right now. It's like, it bums me out because there's a really great group of people that I met through that community. But I also feel like there's got to be something we can start bringing into it, like whether it's like having a finished work, like a finished animation, a finished comic. I don't know, Scott, what's your thought on it?
A couple things. First, as far as the and I know you said that a few times about if you're not drawing, then you're not an artist, or if you're not, and I've always had shared that same opinion, but now I'm kind of moving away from that, because just like, I don't know, I usually don't refer to myself as a comic book artist. Sometimes maybe an artist who does comics, but in some respects I consider myself a comic book artist, but I'm not always drawing comics. I'm usually working on comic adjacent stuff, or things that have to do with comics, or, and just like you alluded to before, where you've completed your graphic novel, but now you have to do this marketing stuff and you're not really drawing. You might, well, maybe you are, but sometimes you'll get on these, and I do this all the time, where a lot of times if I'm doing SEO or all this other stuff that it takes in order to be a comic book artist, unless you have the money to pay somebody else to do all this stuff or whatever. But I still think that makes me whatever I claim to be, because all these other things, even though they're not necessarily the drawing part of it, it's part and parcel of the whole thing. So I think you need to take that into consideration as well, because there's days, sometimes even weeks, where I don't draw anything. They're few and far between. Like I'm drawing something now, but then like if I'm drawing a book, there may be a week where after I draw that book, I've got to do all this other stuff to try to promote the book, or figure all that stuff out.
An artist for that week, right? Productions, like a good case in point, like when I finished 2 stories, I had to spend about a week doing the production and the page layout. Does that count?
I mean, being an artist, and that's kind of what I thought before I actually had to start doing it for a living, was that, you just draw and that's all you have to do. But you have to know how to be a business person. You have to know all this other stuff if you want to be, a graphic designer, a cartoonist, or whatever. It's unfortunately, as much as I kind of like it to be just the art, it's not. I mean, it's not really realistic in today's age. So when you say if you're not, I mean, if I think if what the other things you're doing, if they're working towards that goal of being a comic book artist or whatever, I still think you can call yourself that.
I do want to clarify too, because I don't think that by any means, like by not working on the drawing element of your comics, you're not a cartoonist. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it should be something we have to earn. Do you know what I mean?
Laughing at Victor's comments.
Nice.
I guess I gotta watch my microphone.
That is true. Like every once in a while, you'll
when we first started, I hit something and you freaked out for a second before we even started. Like, oh, what was that?
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, you'll chug and you hear this, like these ice cubes just go.
I'm gonna take a very quiet sip.
I love it. You should actually we should make that a bit that we kind of continue throughout the.
How's that, Victor?
We used to type a lot. Years ago, you had like the loudest keyboard.
Oh, I still do.
Like, holy cow.
Yeah. I tried, then I realized that, and then I tried to stop typing so much, but every once in a while I've got to respond to a comment or something. But yeah, it's just this microphone picks everything up.
Yeah, it does. I always resist labels.
Yeah.
And so like the whole discussion about whether you can call yourself something or not or whatever, for me feels like grasping at the wrong straw. I don't know, because it's like, is that even the point? Like the point is, I don't, like, can you call yourself this? Like it kind of smacks a little bit of gatekeeping. It kind of smacks a little bit of whatever, but like the main point for me is like, you know, call yourself whatever you want if it's going to help you finish something. You know, like you can call yourself the grand poobah of the, you know, of the dinosaur kings. I don't care if that's all it takes to like, you know, like just get you to work on something and finish it. Because I think finishing things is addictive.
Yeah, I agree. I think finishing things is addictive. I also agree with Scott in the sense of like the challenge should not be to constantly be drawing. That's not my point. I think my point is just like you should be working at it constantly. Like it shouldn't just be like if it's always going to be that all you do is 30 minutes and it never kind of catches on and there's never progress or it's never finished, I would really question it. And this is coming from somebody who took me a massive amount of time to finish my first book, like a ridiculous amount of time. But it still got finished and it still was making collective progress, like that I could measure. Like I could actually see a finish line. And that finish line might be like 5 years from now. But like the point is, I think it's important to have a finish line. I also think it's important to actually make the thing. And I do think labels matter in a sense of like my job title is art director, right? A lot of people who are freelance could call themselves an art director, right? Because technically I'm directing myself making art, right? And maybe I collaborate every once in a while with a friend. But I would have trouble at a job interview if I put down art director, right? And I had to answer for it and be like, well, when I was freelance, you know, and like I had like two buddies that, you know, like my point is like some labels collapse under scrutiny. And I do think it's important to understand that like when we're using terms like cartoonist or like if we revere it at all, and I don't want to make it sound too gatekeepy, but I do think it is a little gatekeepy in the sense of like, if we admire this thing, if you really admire and respect and look up to cartooning and cartoonists or animators, right? Like, I feel like if you're going to call yourself part of that club, you have to like be putting in the work. If you're not putting in the work to call yourself, like to kind of put myself like next to like Neil Adams or some guy I really, you know, like some of the legends, I'm never going to compare to those people. But my point is like to even have a conversation where I'm including what I do with what they do, I feel like there is a sense where it's like I do have to earn my stripes. Like, and maybe that's something I put on myself. But I guess my point is I'd like to see more people do that. I'd like to see more people have a sense of need to be participating in the thing they love enough to like not just front their allegiance to it, right? Like it like kind of like, can you imagine if I walked around just talking about how much I love playing basketball, how often I play basketball, and then you and I meet up and I can't even hit like a 3-pointer ever. Like I can't ever hit the basket. I don't even know how to dribble, but I'm saying I love basketball and I play it all the time and I take it very seriously. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a point where like you need what's being said to kind of match what's being done is my point. You know, does that make sense?
And I get your point. I'm not saying that labels don't matter. It's just my initial reaction is to rebel against labels. Like I think my initial reaction to any label is to poke holes in it, try to kill it, because I just hate that. I think that type of thing tends to lead towards gatekeeping and class systems and racism, and you know, I mean, because labels inherently are a verbal differentiator of people.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm not one of those people that's like, let's force everybody to be the same. I mean, there are differences and there should be differences. So, but my initial reaction to labels is to just I don't like them in general, but I do find them useful. But
yeah,
I think I think that's beside the point. Because I mean, personally, I think if you're fixated on or focused on or even care about how you're being perceived by others, you're missing the point of creation. Because
Yeah.
there, as soon as, I mean, I do think there's some value to branding, and there's some value to marketing, and there's some value to thinking a little bit about the perception that you're giving off, so that you're perceived correctly, that you're understood, that you're viewed in a specific light that helps you move through the world, right? I think all of that is helpful. But if that's the focus, then go do anything else. And I think that's kind of my main problem with society today, is everything is so surface level.
Yeah.
That there's very few people that are like, well, I don't want to make that judgment, but it seems like the perception of reality is that you can pretend things and succeed at pretending those things because you've pretended them well. And so I can go around on social media and tell people that I am whatever label, right, and then pretend to live that life, and I could rent a big mansion and shoot a little intro video for YouTube. I could rent a fancy car and get people to try to buy my ebook. There's always.
I do look forward to the Corey Kerr, Bugatti edition.
Right.
It's like, check out my mansion, check out my cars. How did I get this on an artist salary? Click here and find out. Join my 10 steps to healthy living as an artist.
And it's one page and it just says, I sold you this book. That's how. But that's kind of like, I've called those people puffer fish for years.
Yeah.
Like, just inflate themselves to make themselves seem bigger and more important than they are. But really, the puffer fish's defense mechanism is actually that it's poisonous, not that it's scary looking or that it's large. You know what I mean?
Like that.
So there's some real value in the action. And so when it comes to like artists, illustrators, animators, creators of any kind, writers, the real value that you bring to the table is not how you are perceived.
Yeah.
Though that is helpful and important, it shouldn't be your focus. I think it should be something that you think about every once in a while and do things about to help. But your focus should be creating the work. And so my initial response to the whole discussion about whether you're allowed to call yourself an illustrator, blah, 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 is just like, screw it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't care. Like if that guy over there is calling himself an illustrator and he hasn't drawn anything in 5 years, I'm still going to do my thing.
Yeah.
And the truth will out. You know what I mean? Like it will, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that sun's going to rise every morning, and it's going to eventually shine on those people that are the pufferfish, and people will see them for what they are: a hollow, empty, inflated being.
I actually absolutely love that. And I think that kind of touches on what my core issue is, which is I think you're right in the sense that like anybody can call themselves anything, right? I could walk around calling myself the president of the United States. I mean, I can, right? Like, now, is that true? I don't know, right? Like, I guess in this era of a lack of absolute truth, that might be real. Maybe I am president. Maybe that's true.
Well, there's a stage of neurological development where human beings actually believe that all opinions are equally valid.
Yeah.
If you can find enough people in that stage of neurological development, they will absolutely say, hey, Corey does not have the right to tell Josh that he's not the president of the United States, because Josh believes that he's the president of the United States, and his opinion is equally valid. So you can't tell him that he's wrong.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is like, so, I mean, there's definitely a line where it's like, we have to kind of be careful with the labels we give. But my point is more of like, as artists ourselves, like, I think most artists struggle with high expectations of their own art. And I think they all kind of know what their ambitions are and like their goals are to kind of get to as artists. Right. I bet if I did like a round with us, we could probably each name like 2 artists we really admire that we'd like to approach what they're doing, like on a technical standpoint or a professional standpoint, or maybe even a client standpoint, where it's like, I'd like to work for clients like that, or a publisher standpoint, that kind of thing. but the thing that I love about like you, Corey, and you, Scott, is like you guys are always constantly striving to make your art better and to produce art, right? That is so it's actually rarer or more rare, I think, than often I'll give credit to meet artists like that. Like I'm fortunate to know a lot of artists like that, but I think it's a rare thing. I think it's actually much more common to have kind of artists who are hobbyists, but not hobbyists like that are even taking their hobby very seriously. Because I hate the term hobbyist in the sense of like it kind of belittles a hobby as if that's not relevant.
Right. It's stimulating. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know people who like restore cars as a hobby, and if you saw the stuff they worked on their cars, you'd be like, holy crap, like that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, right? Like it doesn't negate what the person's doing just because it's a hobby. But my point is like an unserious hobbyist. And like my only point is like what I want to see more of in cartooning, and I'm not really sure what's sparking this, but it's just like I'd like to see more people seriously try to make good comics, to actually try to put their money where their mouth is and finish comics. If they're into comics. Same with animations. Like I'd like to see animators that are actually going out there and finishing animations. And I would actually like to see less kind of like I noodled with this today kind of like stuff where it's like, well, where's that going? I don't know. But I'm an artist, you know, like I want to see more artists like making art and finishing art, paintings, whatever it is. And I don't know. It's maddening to me to see, I don't know. Sometimes it's just a bummer to see, like, I'm happy to see such a broad variety of cartoonists and stuff, but sometimes it bums me out to see cartoonists that aren't finishing work, and, you know, at all. And like, that to me is so mystifying. And I want to see artists finish work. Mainly for them, right? Because it's like I'm imagining if somebody wants to make a comic, they're gonna make a comic. It's like you were talking about, Corey, where it's like, you know, how do you teach motivation? But you know, like, so if you go into a classroom, right, and you ask students how many students have ambitions to be a great illustrator or writer or author or graphic designer, you're gonna have a ton of students like raise their hands. But if you actually went through it as the instructor, very quickly you start learning who the students are who are really motivated in your class. And then you try to spark the other kids, you know, try to get that spark somehow in the other kids. I guarantee you that ambition, that like quote unquote ambition, isn't matching true ambition when those hands are getting raised. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to touch on that, how to teach motivation, because I was actually struggling with this today. It was kind of frustrating a little bit just because I got a YouTube comment. It was like, I think the comment was like, I'm bad at art, so what's the point in continuing? And so I'm like, art, you know, art is like anything else. You've got to put in the time. I mean, it's practice, it's patience, it's persistence, something I say all the time. But it's like, and I kind of use the analogy, like when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a guitar player, and I picked up the guitar and it was hard and I got frustrated and I quit. In actuality, maybe I really didn't want to be a guitar player. I didn't want it enough, you know. And I said, you know, if it's something you want, you've got to stick with it and everything. And you know, and it's like, you know, you can't not get better at something if you continue to do it. It's just I mean, I never heard of that. That's not really a thing. I mean, some people excel faster than others and everything, and that's fine. But if you stick with something, you're gonna persevere.
Yeah.
And then so the next comment was like, bro, I can't even draw whatever. It's like, okay, I can't teach you. I can't, I can't teach you to have self-confidence. I can give you advice, but I can't make you take it. So I mean, why are you even commenting if you just want to hear, if you're, so I mean, but
So
I know some people are just, they're just not gonna listen, they're not gonna learn, and they're not,
yeah.
So I mean, what can you do? You can't help people like that.
Yeah, and that touches on something else that's fascinating regarding this topic too, because like it's a little beyond confidence too, what it takes to be an artist or a writer, right? Because I think that you kind of have to be insane enough to think you can. And if you were rational at the time you're assessing your own ability, a lot of the time you'd be like, I can't. So there is like this slight irrationality to, I think, what we've all done with our careers, because I think there is a point where we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. And I think this goes for any career, but especially in the arts, where I do think there's a point where it behooves us to like be unrealistic at the beginning in what we're trying to do. Like if Corey had been realistic when approaching learning your animation, like you wouldn't have learned half of what you learned, because you learned a lot of what you learned by being like, I'm going to do this crazy ambitious thing. And then you're like, oh wait, okay, how do I make this work? And the coin flip's a good example, where you're just like, I'm going to try this coin flip thing and I'm going to make it look 3D. Like, but you couldn't at the time you did that. And then you did, right? And how did you do it? You did it by like figuring it out, but you had to have this point of delusion before like the reality actually happens. And I think that might be the part that's actually hard to teach. It's hard to teach people to be ambitious. I've never been able to figure out what it is. I mean, you can like slightly inspire it by like, maybe seeing somebody's potential that's never been seen before, right? And encouraging that in a student who like hasn't heard that before, hasn't heard encouragement. Sometimes it can be by like through hard love, where it's like you have a student who's really talented, but they're just blocked and you can push them. Sometimes it's like, I think maybe showing examples of art and getting people to remember their love for great art, that can kind of light a fire. But the weird thing is, I don't know if you can, like, I guess my point is, it's almost like you can, it's like you're a stove, like a gas stove, and you can be the little spark, but you can't turn on the gas valve. Like the gas valve is just like, that's all the person. And I've never figured out, I mean, if you figure out, Corey, a way to just actually start that entirely in someone, I don't know. Cause I do remember having a few students back in the day that just never, there was just nothing that was going to motivate them to do it. And I kept looking and it was the most heartbreaking thing, because you give them they were the students too, where you give them every opportunity in the world to succeed and they just wouldn't take anything.
So I have a theory that I've been putting into practice now for about 5 years, and it is not 100%, but it's a much higher percentage than a lot of my colleagues. And it's based on people, especially younger people, react to expectations. And so if the expectation is this is hard and you're going to fail, they will give up immediately, right? But if the expectation is this is hard, you're going to struggle, but you're going to succeed, it's amazing what they will do.
That's true.
And so what I've actually found is that I show them work. We should apply this to like this community, but like, instead of saying here's professional work, which I also show professional work, but professional work is really hard to relate to because those are professionals. And
yeah.
They feel like a different creature. They're unrelatable. They feel like someone that I don't know, that I can't be. It's kind of like, I don't really think it's that useful to tell kids that they could be in the NBA or to be the president of the United States. because the people who are in the NBA or the president of the United States or, you know, whatever, to me, that's like they might as well be alien. They're like a species of human, you know, they're like unrelatable, right? But if you can say, hey, listen, that guy that's a little bit you know, that's a little bit older than you, he's 4 years older than you, right? He graduated and now look, he's doing this. And it's something that can be done, right? And you show. So what I do is I take the best student work that I have and I show them, this is what was produced in this class. Students just like you who knew as little as you know, right now at the same point in time in the semester with the same lessons and the same training, we're able to produce this. The only thing it takes to get between where you are now and where you want to be is time and focused effort. And so, and then you frame that, and Greg is mentioning Carol Dweck, who wrote a book on this. There was one of her researcher fellows that came, and I was working with him on this actually for a little bit. But he was talking about one of the tricks to people having grit, right? Which is this idea of people sticking with something. Mm-hmm. One of the tricks is that you have to reframe negative emotions, negative feelings, negative thoughts in your mind as part of the process. And so if you feel resistance, you feel frustration, you feel failure, and you've framed that in your mind as a threat, right? Which is what most of us, when there's that type of stressor, a biological imperative is to survive. And so we take stressors as physical threats. That's how we react to that. But if you can reframe that in your mind and reprogram that in your mind, then what actually happens is that you recognize it as part of the process. You know, and I even had a student's parents come to me at one point in time and tell me, we were watching her. She's not a single mom. She's a mom. Her kid's like, 3 months old, screaming all the time, and she is sitting there just busting her butt in your class, and really frustrated. Tried the same thing dozens of times, and she just wasn't getting it. And we went and said, well, what's going on? And she said, oh no, Professor Kerr said that it would be like this. This is okay. I knew it would be frustrating. It's okay. And they were like, she's never thought that way before. And it wasn't that I did anything special. It was just I told her, when this is hard, I told the whole class, when this is hard, know that you're on the right track. It's going to be hard. Yeah. And so actually it's interesting that the expectation of those negative feelings and then reframing them is one of those things that can get you past them. It's not that they in themselves are obstacles or challenges or stepping stones or whatever. They just are, right? Yeah. The whole tenet of existentialism is that they are facts, right? There are facticity in your life, that there is this fact, it's happening, this is a thing that you can't change, but you get to ascribe specific amount of value to it, whether that be a negative value, positive value, neutral value. You decide the value. And that, so high expectations that aren't so high that they become daunting, but make people stretch. Yeah. And then instilling in them the understanding that it will be a struggle, and telling them specifically, you will feel this, you will think these things, and just know that when you're doing that, that's part of the process. I have had a huge success rate with that. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. And I mean, I think it's good because you mentioned some really important things like actionable goals. Like one of the most demoralizing things you can give, like anyone when they're learning is like a goal that actually is physically impossible to achieve. You do want to ride that line though, right? Like, especially to get the best out of people, like you do want to kind of push them to their limit of creativity and growth. But like to push past that can really like have an adverse scenario. I also like that you mentioned, like kind of acknowledging the negative and kind of reframing it as part of the journey, I think is really important. And I do think that kind of touches a little bit on what I'm kind of hoping to, I don't know, we gotta all talk about this, but I'd like to bring that into a comic community where it's like, rather than, because one thing I like about what you mentioned, Corey, too, is like, it's not like you don't have expectations. And it's not like you don't have expectations of growth or productivity of those students. It's that you're open about the struggle, and you're kind of there with them during their growth. And of course, I'm sure that's going to be measured a little differently based on the artist, right? Where it's like, if you have like an ace killer artist come into your class who's already got some mad skills, you're going to expect them to have progress too, on top of the student who can't draw a stick figure, like that commented on Scott's YouTube channel the other day. But it's like, I do think, I just think the rest can be really problematic in the sense of, I just think like some modern sort of inclusivity methods can be really negative for growth because they take away the expectation. And that's my point, is like, I feel like we've got to, as artists, have a better self-expectation of ourselves that goes a little further than like, I'm just going to do this 30 minutes a day.
Well, and
that's
here's
not enough of an expectation, is my point. Like a self-expectation.
Here's the missing part of the puzzle that maybe you guys can help me with. This is where my theory is incomplete. Is in the controlled environment of the classroom, where I get to set those expectations, those deadlines, the assignments, what they hear and when, and like I have a very structured, what they call scaffolding. Like I scaffold a lot, right? And so it's extremely structured. What I haven't figured out yet is how to get that student to consistently leave my classroom and maintain or improve the behaviors that they developed in my classroom. It's spotty, right? I have a huge success rate from like the start of the semester to the end of the semester. Like there's massive amounts of growth in almost every metric that you can measure, right? And then anecdotal data of just, a lot of the students saying, I didn't think I could do it. It's amazing where I am now, that type of thing, right? But the struggle that I have, and what I'm actually more interested in, is I want people to become someone who does these things, not someone who did them or someone who can do them when they're assigned or they asked, but somebody who, without an external force, without, some old guy up there saying, I expect a lot of you, right? Or whatever, that they're intrinsically motivated of themselves to do that. And so what I wonder, Josh and Scott, I think the three of us and many people in this community have developed very high expectations for ourselves. And I mean, there's like this knife's edge that we're all teetering on of like, high expectations versus like imposter syndrome. And I think like, part of that is that, if you are pushing yourself and wanting to improve, then by definition, you'll be displeased with your work and feel like you're an imposter. So there's that kind of thing, but like, that's what I can't figure out, right? I know how to take groups of people, whether they be in business, whether they be on, an art team, whether they be students, whether they be whatever, I can take groups of people and put them in an environment where they produce. I haven't yet figured out how to consistently, it happens, but not consistently, get them to decide of their own volition, I have high expectations for myself. And that's the thing in the community where I'm like, how do you get people to have that moment of clarity, that revelation, that they see themselves as somebody who does this without other people making them or encouraging them or expecting them to?
So that's the part that I think is the frustrating part. I mean, I think there is an element where you can teach, like I said, but I think like that's the kind of wanting it thing. You can't teach that.
But I want to.
There's got to be a way to foster community around that. And I like the idea of us maybe visiting something like that, because it's like, I do think we've got to, I know for myself, like one of the things I love with, with doing the art check and stuff, is like, people could go back, and I don't think there's any point in time where we've given anybody in the art check like a hard time. Like, I think maybe we've goofed a little bit on people, but we've never really like chewed each other out or anything like that. But I do think there's like this high self standard we all have, where if we don't meet the bar, we come to the art check with like that exact statement, like, hey, this wasn't enough. Like, you know what I mean? It's like we have a high self standard where it's like, we'll be like, yeah, I mean, this may seem like a lot, but this isn't a lot, like, and so I do wonder if there's a way we can foster a further community that kind of pushes people to go beyond just, hey, look, this is my 30 minutes. Like, but could also retain the same kind of inclusivity of something like that. But just like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like, I'm not hoping for gatekeeping. I'm just hoping for people who say they want to do something. I guess I want to see more people who say they want to do something actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am thankful to know, you guys and like other people in the community that are actively like trying and doing, because the other thing is that's the secret trick of that Corey, I think maybe you'll see more fruit in your teaching of that too. But it's like, the more you foster communities, like that's a huge part of school that a lot of students will miss out on, is like the community itself of other students. Like that community and those connections are going to foster the longer term stuff way further than an instructor. Like, so if you have a really driven class, that class, like once they've left school, are going to be the people who keep each other geared and moving, because it's a community thing, I also think like artists seek out other artists, and I think we tend to really surround ourselves with the type of artist we're going to become. And so I definitely think, if you surround yourself with highly productive artists, you're going to be highly productive,
Yeah. Yeah. And Nick is saying that, why would you want to have them in your circle if they can't motivate themselves? You take after the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I think that's true, but also, I'm just driven to want to make the world better.
Me too.
The more artists there are, the better the world is going to be. The more creatives and the more people who have tapped into that part of their humanity and try to create. I think there's kind of something about creation that fosters empathy and fosters, you start doing all those things. And so part of my, like delusion is that I can change the world, and so it's not necessarily that I want to surround myself with people who aren't motivated, but I do want to figure out how to get people that truly want to be productive and can't figure out how, and help them to be productive. And so you're almost creating a community of people that are productive by giving people the tools. But then, there is that expectation, and people can wash out,
Yeah.
That's where I think different communities have had some strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there was with the 100s, if you weren't really doing it, if you weren't attempting the challenge, they'd kick you out. It's like, you can't sit with us. You can't be in the group. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know, but I like the idea of surrounding yourself with people that, people that you want to be like, and people that are productive, and people that are happy, and people that are whatever. But I also find it at the same time, if that's the only thing I did, I feel like that would be 100% self-serving.
Yeah.
I'd like to be some percentage of altruistic.
Yeah. And I also
killing myself.
Yeah. And I also think like sometimes you know, like I have to remember that there have been so many periods in my life, even now, you know, where I have artist friends who are far better than I'll ever be. And they allow me in their circle, and they also allow me to learn and glean from them, which is really cool. And I would hate to get rid of that, like for other people, because I've had that my entire career. Like I've had illustrators who are further in, who kind of took me under their wing and like gave me some hints and tips and tricks and stuff to help me grow. And it's like, I want to do that for other people. That's just, I think, inevitably like part of, once you kind of figure this whole weird industry out in whatever way you can, and it'll shift next week. But I do think you need some people that you're mentoring. I like that.
Yeah. And I don't think Nick is saying,
yeah,
Nick seems like a good guy. I don't think he's saying like we should be, whatever. But I do think if that's the only thing that you should do, that is a problem. But it's really good advice that if you're hanging out with a bunch of losers, you're probably going to be a loser.
Yeah.
You know, so you should kind of, supplement your I'll tell you a quick story. We're way over, so we can wrap here soon. But one of my best friends, hyper productive guy, like super awesome, taught himself how to code and is like one of the smartest programmers I know. I mean, he can just make anything. I mean, anytime I have a problem, where I'm like, I don't know if this exists, like I'll just call him up and he'll be like, oh yeah, I can make that, right? And so it's like he just creates, because I just think software programming to me is like witchcraft. It just
it does seem like
might be some sort of seance for as much as I understand of it.
Yeah, but, I think you have to like go to the Dagobah system or something, and like.
Right. So anyway, but when I moved to the city, and he was in the church I was going to, right? And so I showed up to church, and in that particular congregation, it was like almost the entire congregation were people that were like kind of stuck, living in their parents' basement, but they've graduated high school and they're sort of going to school and sort of not going to school, and they've got sort of a part-time job but sort of not. And I had just graduated from college and had a job, and so he was like, out of all the people in this room, I want to be like that guy. And so he's told me this later, that he just, he basically walked up to me and said, hey, I noticed you just moved into town. Do you like need a place to live? Let's get an apartment, or whatever. And like, we got to know each other and became roommates. And then I guess because of that, he was able to kind of like, he came from a situation where he wasn't raised in an environment where people went to school and did things, right? And so he moved away from the manual labor that he was doing and got educated, and then anyway, now he's teaching college, and he's a huge success. But I mean, he did exactly what Nick was saying, which is, I'm going to be around the people that I want to be like, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and Nick's clarifying. He says, I guess I'd rather invest in people who are trying but not making it. Just don't spend the effort on people who don't do work. And I would agree. If you're a puffer fish and you're pretending, I don't have any time for you. But if you want it and you're trying and failing, dude, I've got all the time in the world, because that's the differentiator. It's not the success to me as much as the drive.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny because I know some successful puffer fish, so it's like I would agree with that. I feel like
if you want to do that, though, get into sales and you'll be successful. Like that's what sales is.
Oh man, 100%. I also just feel like that's a really good differentiation, because I think that's getting closer to kind of what bugs me about it is, and we've talked about this before, but it's like when you're kind of fighting. And everyone I know who's serious about art, and I'm not saying serious like they're not all equally skilled or anything like that, but they're serious about it, like serious about wanting to do comics, serious about wanting to do animation, serious about wanting to do illustration, whatever it is. They're fighting really hard to do that. And some of them are fighting and winning battles a lot and having wild success with it, and some of them aren't. But they all have that common thread of like, we're all fighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
it is really hard when you're in that fight to hear someone say they're fighting and look and you know what fighting is and you're like, you're not fighting. Like, you know, and it's like, it's hard not to call that emperor nude. You know, it's like that's an emperor that has no clothes. And it's very frustrating for people who are like fighting in that fight to like try to kind of placate that, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah. No, that makes sense. But I wonder how much of that is about us. Because if I call myself a certain title, we go back to the labels thing. I call myself a specific title, and then I see somebody claiming that title, but they haven't gone through what I've gone through. They're not doing what I'm doing. I wonder how much of that is just me being annoyed. Like, hey, you can't take that thing. You're devaluing the thing.
Well, I'd agree with that though. And I think that's where labels are important though, because I think there is a value in some labels. And I think we often can destroy the value of a label. Like, you know, like great example, like I don't particularly like labels with music, right? There's a style of punk rock I really dig, right? It's not, I mean, I love like almost all facets of punk rock, but my real jam, like my favorite kind of punk rock is post-hardcore. It's a specific kind. Now, that label doesn't function in a way where I don't think it makes the band good or bad to call themselves post-hardcore. It just is a certain sound from a certain time that I really resonate with. And it's a certain form of punk rock. The more crappy bands call themselves post-hardcore, the less effective and helpful that label is for me as a music consumer to buy good music, right? The more kind of open that label becomes, the harder it is for me to communicate the kind of music I love. And so I guess my point is like labels can have a really good helpful function. And I do think if we love something and we're calling ourselves that thing we love, we should honor that thing in what we're doing in whatever way that is. We should honor what that is and what we're doing. And as nerdy as that is, I think like, you know, if we love comics, we should honor comics when we're doing comics, and we should be doing comics, you know, if we're artists that want to make comics. If we're artists that want to do animation, we should honor animation. We should respect and that doesn't mean like I'm going to hold up these 3 animators as the gods that are the gatekeepers. Like, no, not that. That would be the wrong version of honoring. But I'm just saying have like a semblance of self-respect for it, where it's like, if I want to play in this toolbox, I got to up my game to play in this toolbox. Frank, you could be a post-hardcore comic creator.
I don't even know what that means, but I love it. You know what's interesting is this is such a nuanced topic, and we're trying so hard to not make definitive statements because it's nuanced.
That's true.
You know, like, yeah, labels matter, and you should protect things that, you know, you should protect those labels because, like, I have a master's degree. That actually means something, right? People that have a PhD, that actually means something. You can't just run around and say that you have a PhD.
Well, you can, apparently. I mean, there's a lot of people who do.
You can, right? But that is a problem because it should means that there is a value in society and to the individuals that have gone through that to be able to do that. But at the same time, too much of that, and you turn into like the evil gatekeepers where there's only the anointed that are allowed to do things. And,
exactly.
And whatever. And so the real challenge that I think we're having in this discussion is that we're talking about a nuanced topic where there isn't an absolute definitive answer.
Yeah.
It's a blanket statement that you can make about all of these things. But it is interesting. It is interesting to discuss. I don't know. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You know, you should surround yourself with, you know, people that are going to help each other and help you. But that's a nuanced situation because you shouldn't do it selfishly, but there should be some, you know, motivation and benefit to you to do that. And so you have to be a little bit selfish, but you've also got to be a little bit altruistic. And it's just, I don't know, anything worth it is nuanced. I just don't think that there are black and white answers to things that have value.
Yeah, often the black and white answers are the least correct. So like it's funny, one of the easiest black and white statements is a statement to disprove a black and white statement. That's one of the easiest ways to generate a decent black and white statement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think there's nuance to things, and especially things we care about, right? Because but I do think also, just like for myself, like I will tell you a personal challenge, and I'm sure you guys have similar ones. But like my personal challenge is like I'm gonna try to make another one of these in a year and a half. I may fail, but that's what I'm aiming for. I want it to be a thick, crazy graphic novel, and I want it to be good. And when that's done, I want to do another, right? And I'm hoping to kind of do more and more as I'm, in the industry. And I think we all have similar ambitions. Like Corey, you're going to be finishing and creating this series on YouTube that's kind of crazy and long, but serialized. And I think that's pretty exciting. I think Scott's going to be finishing Young and the Dead. Am I wrong?
That's the plan.
That's right. So, and that's on top of what we already do. So I feel like, I don't know. I think that's important for us to have high goals for ourselves too. Even if we fail at it, I think having the goal and the work is more important than not,
So yeah, I just broke everything that I've been working on for the past 6 hours. I have no idea what's going on now.
Oh no.
Anyway, sorry. That was my stunned like silence there. It's not working, and I just restarted the software. It's still not working.
Oh no.
Something is wrong with it. One of my favorite coding jokes is my code is broken and I don't know why. And then the next frame is my code is working and I don't know why. And that's, yeah, I have no idea what's happening right now, but it is not functioning. On that note, any closing thoughts, Scott?
No, I don't. I don't know.
Where can people find your stuff?
We kind of did skip over what we're doing next, which is I don't know if you want to close out with that or not.
Sure. Yeah, let's close out the plans.
So what am I doing? I say that, and I really don't have much plans other than finish this. We'll upload that video tomorrow, so I have a new video going live. I'm going to work on my Christmas card and hopefully just some more KDP stuff. And with that, you can find me at circworks.com. And just because I'm lazy and I haven't had a chance to go change it, my stuff is still 50% off. So, hopefully I won't be lazy, and you might want to jump on that if there's something up. If my digital products anyway on my website are all 50% off until I decide to go and take that sale off. And like I said before in the beginning of the show, I got this book here. When I Grow Up, I Can Be Anything, an inspirational coloring book for boys. It's on Amazon. If you type that keyword in, you should hopefully you'll be able to find it. And yeah, it's just a bunch of cool inspirational phrases and kind of occupations for kids when they grow up. But yeah, this was a fun one to do. So that's available on Amazon. It's not under my name, so if you search my name, you won't find it. But you can search for that title. And that's all I got going on.
When I searched for it by just looking for when I grow up, I can be anything coloring book, it was the first result.
Oh, nice.
I think cool. That's what a good way for people to navigate and find.
Awesome. That's good. That's good to know. I don't know how many people are going to search that exact phrase, but but that's the phrase I'm hoping that the whole reason why I kind of jumped on that book is inspirational coloring book for boys. Was kind of something people were searching for that didn't have a lot of results. And the ones that it did have were selling quite a few. And that's kind of the criteria you want to meet when you're creating a book. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of criteria of things that sell well and then going with the polar opposite of that and making a book, you guys should go pre-order this book, Two Stories. It's a autobiographical comic about faith and mental illness that's really confessional and kind of talks about the journey of kind of losing faith and falling into mental illness and then kind of regaining it. It's hand lettered, hand inked, and a labor of many years of work. But you can pre-order it now, and it's a pretty good book. So yeah, check that out. And then you can also follow me on joshmckimball.com, where I'll be posting interviews and features and stuff of this book as those go around. So yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, I got mine pre-ordered too. Greg says he's got his pre-ordered. Mine's pre-ordered. My girlfriend pre-ordered hers. So
sweet.
The thing I will say was, so this I want to also say this because I got a comment from Frank asking if I got the package he sent. I did have it. I haven't opened it because I wanted to do an unboxing, and I was going to wait until Josh's book came out. But I got a notification that it may come out anywhere from December 30th to January 30th.
Oh, the delivery nonsense. Yeah, I've already talked to the publishers. I'm figuring out what's going on with that. That's really
okay.
strange.
So
Yeah.
I'm not going to wait for. I'll probably just do a dedicated video for Josh. So, and I've got some other stuff people sent me. So I'll probably do an unboxing video maybe next week, if not the following week. So I do have that stuff. I just if you send me mini comics or whatever, I have it. I haven't opened it because I want to do a live unboxing. So hopefully nobody's sending me like perishable comics or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Perishable comics.
I don't know.
Comics are printed on bread. Like it was made with a toaster on bread. Corey, where can everybody find your work? Where can they check?
You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. Yeah. So CoreyKerr.com. I forget all the time to mention this, but if you go to my site, you can buy stickers that I've made.
Yeah.
And all that jazz. But yeah, CoreyKerr.com. And if you go to CoreyKerr.com/online, you can see all the different things that are going on. It's a good place to go to see animations, illustrations. You can read my 4-page short story that I made last year in comic form. So there's lots of fun stuff on there. So you can go check that out. You're on my channel, so hit the thumbs up if you haven't hit it. Share this video. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out is what to call this episode. Because we covered so much, and I've been trying to label them a little bit better so that they're not just round 270 or whatever, but like
motivation maybe, but we went diverged all over the place. But
this would be like a potpourri of like motivation, gatekeeping,
potpourri.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so you can go there if you I forgot to do that today. Yeah, so there's lots of good stuff there. You can check that out. And more important than any of that stuff is go make something. So yeah. All right. We'll see you guys in a couple days.
Okay, so Scott, wait, we're still going.
I thought you were like continuing.
No, I thought we were off.
Now the after show where we don't record things.